This is Kugan Cassius for IFL TV. We're in the Matchroom Studios here in Essex.
Matchroom Studios?
Where are we then?
It's a garage.
You call every other time we've done it, you call it
No,
a
but
studio.
you normally say the Matchroom head office.
Yeah, but we're in the studios.
Studios.
We are, look.
Studio.
Matchroom Studio. Sorry.
It's important to note and tell people, although it's April 1st today, there will be no April Fools other than our tag team prize fighter and your one about to change date of Froch Groves. So everything said here is the truth, the whole truth.
Well, I had a rumour
And
about
nothing
26th
but
of July. Ah! Got you in it. Right, so question and answer session. Obviously, there was 2,100 and sank emails, and it took me a while to read through them.
You have zero life. What else were you doing last night?
Can't say.
I know.
Don't say. But right, let's just talk about what you're going to give away to the people.
We're going to go next big show, Manchester. Scott Quigg versus Semeno, John Murray against Anthony Crolla, etc., etc. So we're going to be giving away tickets for that. If there's a screamer, I will do a little double for Froch Groves.
Oh, Froch Groves.
Yeah. So, but it'll have to be a screamer.
All right.
It'll have to make me go.
Okay.
You know, it'll have to be one of them where I'm lost for like. Fuck.
Give them the tickets.
One
of them.
Yeah.
All right. Right. Let's start now. Right. First question is from L. Iyer.
A liar.
No, L. Iyer. I don't know.
Maybe that was what he was trying to do.
Maybe. Hi guys, fantastic work on IFL TV and
a couple of compliments to you.
Great shows with Matchroom. Eddie, can you respond to latest rumours on boxing forums about your sexuality? Thank you.
Did someone actually put that?
Ah! April Fools! See, I got you as well, innit?
I was sweating up a bit there, to be honest with you.
Do you want to give me the
I'm married, I swear, when it suits me.
Alright, scrap that one,
okay,
but we leave it in.
Again.
Right.
That was nearly Froch
This
Groves
is right. I only picked this geezer not because his question was particularly great, but look at his name.
Ed Hearn.
That's serious.
It's obviously not his name.
No, that's his name.
How do you know that's his name?
Because look, he said yes, I have the same name as Eddie.
Of course he don't.
What, you reckon only Eddie?
If he does, send a copy of a screenshot of his passport on Twitter, and he gets 2 tickets
to
the Manchester show.
Okay. Oh, Eddie Hearn, you're sorted. All right, let's answer this question anyway. Would you prefer Kell Brook to win a title or beat Amir Khan? What would you prefer?
Probably beat Amir Khan. You know, and I know that like you get the Team Khan in it. It's going, oh, all he does is talk about Amir Khan. That's all mainly what he gets asked about. Do you know what I mean? So he has to obviously respond about it. Kell badly wants to fight Amir Khan. It's the biggest fight out there financially for both fighters outside of Floyd Mayweather, for Amir Khan. And it's the one fight, I said the other day, I think in a Daily Mail interview, that my job is twofold really. One is to deliver the world title shot for the fighter, and 2 is to deliver the most lucrative opportunity, pretty much financially, for the fighter. Hopefully, in an ideal world, those 2 come hand in hand. In Kell's respect, they don't. You know, we want to deliver him a world title shot, which is the case. He'll fight the winner of Sean Porter and Paulie Malignaggi before July the 17th. However, financially, the biggest fight out there is Amir Khan. But in answer to the question, taking money aside, of course, Amir Khan against Kell Brook is the one that I would love to see. That fight would take place in the UK. But to see Kell go to America and win the world title would be very, very special. Albeit if Malignaggi beats Porter, I think we've got a crack to get him over here.
Okay. Jordan Marr. Can you ask Eddie, does he think Ricky Burns is capable of winning another world title, and how he rates him among the British level as well?
Well, yeah, interesting. I'm going to see Ricky tomorrow actually in Glasgow. I just feel that he's had a really tough run of fights, and sometimes you need to, I don't think you need to rebuild, but you know, sometimes performance is based on belief and confidence as well. And it's very difficult for him to have that belief after his last 3 performances. And forgetting the Beltran fight because he broke his jaw, and I think he would have gone on to do well in that fight, but who knows. But the Gonzalez performances was poor, and the Crawford performance was poor against a very good fighter. So, but in answer to the question, I think it's time for Ricky just to step back a level. Doesn't mean that's where we're going to operate. It just means I think he needs to go in there, put in a great performance, get the confidence back, get the belief back for himself, get the belief of the people again, and then go on for another fight. The first thing he said to me after the fight was, get me Vasquez, get me Abril, get me Crawford. And I thought, blimey, mate, you've just had 3 tough fights. Have a rest, let's regroup, let's think about what went wrong, and let's come back. I've made no secret that the winner of Murray and Crolla, I think, is a good fight for Ricky Burns. But I can, I think I can deliver him another shot quite comfortably. But I don't necessarily think now is the right time. If he was right at the end of his career and it was like, just get me as much money as you can, I'm going to have one more fight, of course, bring him over. But I don't think it's time necessarily to take that move for the next fight. He still needs a tough fight. He still needs a competitive fight. And I'll sit down with him tomorrow and talk about what that's going to be. But that will be June the 27th in Glasgow.
Different situation from when Froch lost to Andre Ward. You wanted to get him back straight away into a world title shot.
Well, not really. I mean, I gave him the option, and but you've got to remember when Carl Froch lost to Andre Ward, he come off the back of some very impressive performances. Obviously, he'd beaten Abraham, he beat Johnson as well, and boxed well, and then boxed Andre Ward, and didn't work out for him. Either he was poor, or Andre Ward was too good, or whatever. But it wasn't like 3 consecutive performances like Burns had and a broken jaw. Do you know what I mean? And the opportunity presented itself for Lucian Butte, and Carl was given the option, and he went for Lucian Butte. So, thankfully, and I'll do the same for Rick.
Okay. Nathan Dennison says, who are the next batch of fighters who will realistically be fighting for a world title before the year's out?
Good question. I think that's some Manchester tickets.
Have you got a pen?
No, but how can you even not have a pen? There's one over here.
One over there. Do you know
what other interview do you know that goes off and you say, yeah, have you got a pen to the interview?
That was last time we had the old desk,
yeah,
and the pen was already there. So Nathan Dennison, little tip by your name, you've got tickets to
Manchester. So the question is, which is a good question, and the answer is, Brian Rosewood obviously he's fighting for a world title on June the 14th. Jane McDonnell will fight for a world title in the summer. Lee Selby, I believe, is like fringe 2014. Looks like he's going to fight an eliminator on May the 17th.
Not a final.
No, a final eliminator would come after that, probably in September. So he's going to be tight. I think Burns will fight for a world title before the end of the year. You've got the winner of Murray Crolla. If he fights Burns, do they beat Burns? Do they go down another route? You've got Tony Bellew, Nathan Cleverly. If they don't fight each other, which I hope they do, they'll probably fight for a world title before the end of the year.
Paul Smith?
Yeah, Paul Smith's an interesting one. He's number 4 in the WBO. I think he's got a great shout to be mandatory for Abraham, or if not, perhaps fight Stieglitz in a final eliminator. But I think he'll have a world title shot this year, probably September, October. Yeah, I think that's probably about it for 2014. 2015.
Unless something unexpected was to show up.
I think 2000. Obviously, you got Kell Brook winning a world title. I think 2015 is the really interesting one because then you got the new batch coming through. I'm talking about the Campbells,
Smith,
Callum, Joshua. Those sort of guys who I believe end of 2015 will be starting to look at world titles.
Okay. Dominic Round says, you've travelled the country watching your fighters train. So if you were an amateur just going into a program and you had to pick any trainer in the country, who would it be?
That's a good question. That's tickets as well. I mean, I think the trainer is suited more to the individual, and I'm not trying to fence it with that, you know, because obviously if you don't want to be in London, you're not going to go with Tony Sims. If you want to train around Manchester, your obvious choice is Joe Gallagher, you know. I think there's some wonderful trainers in the sport, some of which, you know, aren't even training matchroom fighters. So, you know, you go right from the top, you go up, you know, to Billy Nelson's up in Scotland. Joe Gallagher seems to have a real foothold in the northwest. You know, you come down to London, you know, even Manchester, you've got Oliver Harrison, who I rate as a good trainer as well. You've got Rocky and Martin Murray. You go down to London, you've got Jimmy Tibbs and Mark Tibbs. I think they do a great job with the boys. And of course, Tony Sims, who I rate as one of the top trainers in the country. I think that it depends what type of person you are, you know, and how you're motivated. Some fighters like to be around a big group of fighters training. You know, and I quite like that sort of setup, like Joe Gallagher's, like Sims, he's got, like even Al Smith, you know, with Boylan and Bradley Skeet and those kind. You know, it's like a family. And other fighters like more one-on-one. They like to be sort of, you know, more the centre of attention. So, in answer to your question, who would you turn pro with? I would say, you know, where do you want to be based? What makes you happy? Because there's no point being from Manchester and saying, do you know what, I'm going to go and train in London with Tony Sims and go down there and just hate being down there, because you're not going to be happy. You've got to be a happy fighter. So really it depends on a lot of things. Okay.
Jonathan Winstanley says, can Bellew and Cleverley be as big as Frochgroves too?
No, is the answer. But it doesn't mean it can't be a huge fight. I mean,
why just a straight no?
Because sometimes, I mean, you know, Frochgroves 2 is so big, and I'm not sure you'll get another fight like this in our lifetime. Do you know what I mean? Because how often are you going to sell out, you know, eventually 80,000 at Wembley? It's going to do huge box office numbers. Don't get me wrong, Bellew Cleverley is a big fight, but also Frochgroves is for 2 belts in the super middleweight division. Bellew against Cleverley will ultimately be probably a final eliminator for the world title. But I still think Bellew Cleverley, as big as it is now, will grow and grow and grow and grow. And when they come face to face, if you get the momentum, it could be as big as Frochgroves 1, which was a huge fight in itself.
Of course. Brett Norman says, will there ever be a Sky Sports boxing channel similar to what they've done with F1, or is there no market for it?
You know, a lot of these questions to Sky Sports, people have got to realise, I don't own Sky Sports. I don't run Sky Sports. So, you know, a lot of the decisions that are made around boxing or around sport aren't necessarily my decisions. So I can't answer all the questions that are relevant to Sky Sports. I can give my opinion on that. And my opinion of that is that there isn't the market for a boxing-only channel. And forgetting, you know, Box Nation, I'm talking about Sky Sports dedicated boxing channel, or any boxing channel. I don't believe there's a market for it. That may change in 5 or 10 years if we keep doing what we're doing and we keep growing the sport. The main problem is that, you know, for Sky Sports, it's obviously about subscription drivers, right? What is going to make people subscribe to Sky Sports? Football is obviously the key driver for that. You know, you've got Sky Sports, right? Why do you subscribe to Sky Sports? Mainly for
predominantly football.
Yeah, I mean, because you get the porn free, you know, all those chat lines and the cable stuff. Yeah, that, but you get that in the cable
Filthy
stuff.
milfs.
Yeah, exactly. Essex Wives.
It's in that.
Oh yeah, 984 I think. But so subscription drivers, and they've found Formula One to be a subscription driver. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So some sports, whilst entertaining and may do great numbers, they may not be seen as out-and-out subscription drivers. Darts might be a good example of that. Probably the second highest rating sport on Sky Sports, yet probably not something that people subscribe to Sky Sports for. And I think boxing is the same. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are some people that subscribe to Sky Sports for the boxing, but probably not enough, certainly, to warrant a spin-off channel.
You tend to find if you're a boxing fan, you're
also a football fan.
Yeah.
But same with darts. You know, if you're a darts fan or you're watching the darts, you're a huge football fan. You know.
Okay, Anthony McMahon says, would a prize fighter on a world level with world titles as the ultimate prize ever be a possibility to give domestic level fighters a bite at such a prestigious cherry?
Not over the short format. You know, obviously you've got the Super 6 series, which are, you know, Super 6 was good and bad, wasn't it? I mean, it was great that the very best were fighting each other, but the problem was it happened over such a long period that in the end it wasn't a tournament, it was just good fights. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it wasn't like, wow, this is the semi-final, to get in the final. It was, this is a good fight. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, like, when it's all on one night, it's all wrapped into one, it's a bit more, there's a story. But the Super 6 with the injuries as well, it was just a little bit disjointed, and but still great for the sport because those fighters got to fight each other.
Okay, John Scullion, just wondering if Matchroom are thinking about doing a show in the North East. We haven't had a big show for a long time. Hashtag starved. Obviously, they had one on the weekend up in Newcastle.
Yeah, I had a lot of people emailing me saying, you know, we don't get any boxing up here, but they've just had a, you know, they had a show at the weekend. I know it didn't work out. Obviously, it was a short fight and a disappointing ending, but it was still, you know, a good lineup on Saturday in the North East. I mean, you know, they had Hall against McDonald, they had Frankie Gavin, they had John Lewis Dickinson, they had Bradley Saunders. So, you know, I think looking at the numbers and speaking to the people out there, it didn't do the numbers that I would have expected it to do, which might, you know, is it because there isn't the market? Is it because it wasn't promoted? I don't know. Is it because wasn't the right blend of fighters? But I've had a couple of approaches this week from North East fighters looking to join the team, and it is something that we look at. You know, I saw a post on Eastside Boxing the other day, and it was like, Hearn needs to change his venues. You know, we're bored of Liverpool, Hull and Cardiff and Manchester and Glasgow and London. You know, it's the same old, same old. Well, it's not really, but obviously we're also a business and we have to go to places where that appeal to the fan base of our fighters, but also that create great atmospheres. You know, there's no point going to Kent, you know, and putting on Ricky Burns, you know, because it's not right. You need the passion and you need that to come across within the show. So the last time we were in the North East was for like the second edition of Prize Fights. I think it was 2008 or 2009. They've got some good fighters up there, but you know, if we take a Matchroom star and put him in the North East, does it sell? You know, and that's something to consider. You know, it didn't fill me with huge confidence knowing the numbers that they did last Saturday, and it was a good, you know, it was a good bill. So,
but couldn't you go with a smaller venue? Obviously, that venue that.
No, but I think they were only cut off anyway. So I think that venue can hold like 8,000 to 10,000, but they were cut down anyway. Yeah, you know, but then you're going back into the 2000s, and you know, I think if you're going to take a punt, you got to do it properly.
Okay. Samuel English says, is there any way you would let Scott Quigg fight Frampton and Box Nation if Cyclone Promotions were offering more money than Matchroom?
Yeah, it boils down to the fighter. There's nothing in Scott Quigg's contract with me that says he can't box, that he has to box on Sky Sports, otherwise he breaches the contract. He wants to box on Sky Sports. That's the bottom line. That's why he joined us. You know, the Frampton fight is, again, you know, it goes back to the biggest fight available to both fighters is Quigg Frampton. So I think on the flip side of that question, I believe that Carl Frampton, we've, you know, since found out because of the offers we've made, has an exclusive contract at Box Nation where he can't box anywhere else. So we've made him some pretty lucrative offers, but even if I doubled those offers, I don't believe that he's allowed to take the fight. So obviously that's a stumbling block, and then you start talking about the politics of the sport. Not a problem. That's just boxing, you know. But people have got to understand, and actually, you know, for both guys, and by the way, you know, both nice blokes, both great fighters, both well up for the fight. Make no mistakes about that. But, you know, I'm going to open talks again with Barry McGuigan after the fight at the weekend because, you know, Leo Santa Cruz has just had a mandatory. So when are they going to put the next mandatory in? 2015. So if Frampton wants to fight quick, we could do it in September, October. You know, I mean, people talk about, oh, you had a load of options. We didn't even talk about options. We didn't get that far. You know, would I require options? I'd certainly want a rematch clause as Scott Quigg is champion, but that's okay. What, so he'd have a problem with fighting and then doing a rematch in Belfast? There's 2 great paydays if he lost. You know, if Quigg lost, it's 2 great paydays. If Frampton won, it's 2 great paydays. So, you know, I think in time, I just think fighters are starting to get their head round the fact that we've got to make these big fights, you know, because everyone wants the big payday, everyone wants the big fights, and shit fights are boring.
Okay. Kurt Lysett says, what does the future hold for middleweights in Britain? With Barker retired, Murray fighting overseas, Lee and Macklin waiting for a title shot, and also was signing Murray an option to you.
Didn't speak to Martin Murray, not because I don't think he's a good fighter. I think he's a great fighter. Just you know, you look at that division and it's difficult to carve out an opportunity without just jumping into a big fight that's a really tough fight. Like, everyone could have the Golovkin fight. You know what I mean? Like, he'd probably fight you because no one really wants to. So whether it's Andy Lee, whether it's Macklin's obviously already fought him, whether it's Martin Murray, any of those could fight Golovkin and get a shitload of money for doing so. But they'd all lose. So, you know, where do you want to go? And I think Martin's gone with a promoter that's going to get him active and back him. He does have the visa problems, and this isn't going to go away, and I don't know where they're up to on that, but it looks unlikely short term that he can get into America for the big fights, which is obviously a problem. So that's Martin Murray. Andy Lee is with Adam Booth, you know, working hard. Talks of him going down to light middleweight, which, you know, will be interesting. The middleweight division, certainly domestically, has gone off the boil, hasn't it? You know, I mean, we had Barker, Macklin, Lee. Barker won a world title. We had that great Gloves Are Off show, and everyone was talking about it. And all of a sudden, Barker lost. Barker retired. You know, Macklin's out there. Lee's down there, maybe moving down to light middleweight. Murray's off to South Africa. You know, it's. I don't think you know, much is moving very quickly. But I've still got one eye on Andy Lee versus Matthew Macklin. And I think September could be the time to make that in Ireland.
Right, there's another question about that, so I'll still ask that. Dave Shep says, if you had to swap one of your fighters for one of Frank Warren's fighters, which one would it be and why?
Well, I wouldn't swap any of my fighters. So I won't answer that. If you ask me who I rate of his fighters, I think, you know, he's still got some good fighters. You know, Frankie Gavin, I think he's a good fighter. He was poor on Saturday, but again, what's happening with Frankie Gavin is he's just being brought down by the opponents. You know, Saki Shikutu, or whatever his name was, who actually weren't bad, but, you know, and then like David Barnes, Bradley Price, you know, he's better than that, and he will perform better against better opposition. Billy Joe is a good fighter. You know, he had a great fight at Ryder like that. You know, I've heard that he's been out of training for a while now. I don't know. I think he's got a European title shot.
Paul Butler?
Yeah, Paul Butler. Right, Paul Butler. I think he's a good fighter. Difficult division. You know, super fly, and it's going to be interesting what happens with a bantamweight fold now, because everyone wants a shot at Stuart Hall. You know, we've made him a 6-figure offer to fight on the May 31st card. Again, can't do it because of political reasons and contractual reasons. He'd love to, by the way. And Paul Butler will be trying to get in before the, you know, I think he's got a mandatory due in June. So my guess is they'll try and make Butler Hall for I think it's May the 17th they're talking about in Liverpool. So Butler's a good fighter. Bradley Saunders looks like a really good prospect. He's still got a great stable, you know, fighters, but I wouldn't swap any of ours. You know, ours are like family. You know, they don't go nowhere.
Okay. Matt Bowes Says Eddie, with the sheer size of Foxbury Groves 2 in terms of ticket sales and expected viewing figures, do you think that Sky will then have an obligation or willingness to put more money into the sport?
That's a very good question. I know Matt very well. He's already got VIP tickets. He's already bought VIP for Manchester. So, but he's coming down to prize fight, so I'll buy him an extra beer on Saturday. Good question. And
one beer.
And the answer is that's something we're certainly going to be putting pressure on. You know, boxing is in a great place at the moment, and it's definitely caught the attention of certainly our broadcaster in terms of the increased viewing figures and in terms of the look and the feel of the shows and the crowds. And of course, when you deliver a big pay-per-view fight, we want that money to be reinvested in the sport. And you know, that's definitely something I believe in and something that I'll be pushing hard with our broadcaster.
Okay. There's a lot of questions about this. Mark Madonna, when will there be an announcement on the further ticket sales for
Yeah, so I was hoping to get an announcement at the end of last week. We've put all our requests in and planning and arguments in with Transport for London. Literally any day now, we should know. We've asked for the full, I think 81,000 or something like that, with the same curfew, and we're hopeful that we can deliver that. We've covered all the points that they were concerned about, and hopefully any moment we should get some news.
Okay.
I've got no socks on. I feel a bit.
What?
I've just seen the things like people don't. If you're not from Essex, like it's quite standard around here, isn't it? But it is. I could know why. If you're not, you'd go, why is he not wearing any socks? If you wear socks with these loafers, can you imagine how bad they'd look?
I wouldn't wear a
You wouldn't wear loafers anyway.
Who?
You. No, you don't wear loafers, do you? And jeans, like you just wear your.
Every one of your fight nights on a Saturday, I'm waiting. You see that on Saturday notice.
They're not loafers, mate.
What?
They're fucking rascals. They're like something that my maths teacher would wear. Those black leather things.
No, not them. They are a bit rascal.
Yeah.
Not them.
Anyway.
James Dunkey. Good name. Funky Dunkey. In future, would you look to add Amir Khan to the Matchroom stable to increase the chances of a fight with Kell Brook, like you did with Nathan Cleverly for Tony Bellew?
Never say never. I mean, listen, I've had chats with Amir. I've had chats with Richard Schaefer. What can I say? Everyone loves a pound note. Everyone's going to go where they're going to get treated best, where the best platform is for them, and where the most money is. Combine them all and make your decision.
Okay. Steve Ayling. Eddie, I see you're running your first Virgin London Marathon. What inspired you to take this monumental challenge?
My dad watched the film Bucket List, and
Jack Nicholson.
And he wrote down all the things he wanted to do before he died. One of them was to watch my sister get married. Obviously, that's happened now. One was to have a tattoo. He done it.
What's it got?
In mouth, fucking so bad.
What is it of?
It's on his arm, and it's like a heart, and it says family, and it's got like a flame coming out the top. It's so bad. He looks like something out of Hell's Angels. One was to watch me run a marathon, because he's run like 8 or 9 London marathons. No, 6 or 7 London marathons. I think Hong Kong and New York. So he's always taking the piss out of me. Oh, you're a fat lump. Oh, you got no arsehole. You're a silver spoon kid. Blah blah blah. So this year I decided to run a marathon, and we sit here now with 12 days to go, and I am thinking, what on earth have I done? But I've trained hard. Feel good.
Yeah, I've seen a bit of your training actually. Harry Sam Donaher says, does Eddie think signing Nathan Cleverly would have an effect on the relationship he has with Tony Bellew? If so, does he think it could be damaging?
That's a good question. Give them tickets. I saw a lot of this. People have got to realise about my relationship with fighters. The first thing that I'd done when I started speaking to Nathan Cleverly was phone up Tony Bellew and tell him exactly what was happening, because I'm very close with Tony Bellew, and it's just like me. It's like Tony finding out that I've been talking to another bird. Do you know what I mean? And I had to say to him, listen, just to let you know, I've had an approach from Nathan Cleverly, and I'm interested in joining him to the team. The long-term picture is a fight with you, and if I have him on the stable, that fight is very likely to happen. Absolutely fine. Tony understands the business. Never was it, you can't do that, don't do that to me, not another cruiserweight. No, it was, I understand. And, you know, someone said, oh, bet he was livid. Not at all. It's part, you know, it's a move to benefit Tony Bellew. He can't stand him. I mean, you know, some of the things he says about him, and, you know, but that's what makes the fight so big. But no, listen, I've got a brilliant relationship with Tony, and as soon as I started talking to Nathan, Tony was made aware of that, you know.
Can I just say that if you rung me up and said, oh, cool, by the way, I'm just doing like a Q&A, hour long with like whoever.
You'd throw your toys out the pram.
I'd go fucking mental.
Would you?
I would.
Well, that's not good, is it?
Why?
Don't you trust me?
Listen, we started from the bottom when no fucking knew who you was, right? And you were just like Fat Eddie, Barry's son, right? No one knew who he was. We were there, bruv.
Yeah, I know, but you know, there comes a time where, well, it's just like, what about when you go and do a Q&A or something with another promoter? I don't mind, do I?
I'm not on about Q&A, I'm just on about, you know, big bloods.
Yeah, but it's the same thing.
I want to do a Q&A with other people. They just think I'm just like rap round you, so I'm going to keep doing it with you. I would do it.
Yeah, but they want to know the questions first. Different ball game.
Listen, we'll do it the same way as I've done with you. Otherwise, it can't be done. James Keane, sort of touched on this before, but just as a straight answer he wants. In your opinion, who will be the first to challenge or win a world title from Campbell, Joshua and Smith?
Really difficult, isn't it? Because they're all in divisions that it's really hard to win a world title. Heavyweight, super middleweight, lightweight. Because Callum is verging on the world top 15, I'd go for Callum Smith.
Okay.
You know, but Luke is like, I really feel like by the end of this year, Luke will be probably top 10 in the world, because he's getting, you know, even now we're looking at opponents where we say sling him in is the wrong word, but that's how it feels like. We want to put him in now in a big fight. And Joshua's like chomping at the bit for all the big fights. So I'll have to go with Callum Smith, because of where he is at the moment.
Okay. Matthew Town says, with the current heavyweight scene beginning to open up with the retirement of Vitaly Klitschko, do you think it's a good thing, or as we have now competitive fights for the heavyweight crown, or a bad thing that someone hasn't won the title from a recognised champ?
Whatever it takes to free it up and to make it active again. I mean, look, you know, the Klitschko's slightly boring but great fighters. You can't take anything away from them. But, you know, obviously Stiverne will fight Areola now for the vacant WBC. Great. Let's get it active again. You know, I think the WBO, obviously Klitschko's got his mandatory against Lepai. He's the super champion, so I think they have to. It's like, I think they have to face the mandatory every 18 months or something like that. So he'll probably pick and choose his opponents for another year and a half after. But I think, how many's he got left? You know, so I think we're approaching a really exciting time in the heavyweight division, and some good fighters. You know, Wilder, Fury, Joshua,
Price is still
Stiverne,
there.
Price. You know, Chisora. You know, it's good. It's a good division.
Lee Farnell says, does Eddie think that in terms of image and brand extension, Anthony Joshua can be big or bigger than Mayweather?
I think that Anthony's got something very different to a lot of fighters. He's cool. He's current. He understands the game. He understands the business. But to be bigger than Floyd Mayweather, you know, you're talking. I think he can be a huge household name, and I believe he'll be world champion. And then from there, it's about the team doing the right things to make him. You know, what I'm looking forward to about Anthony Joshua is, I'm looking forward to people finding out and seeing what we see behind the scenes with Anthony Joshua. Do you know what I'm saying? He's very PC. He says the right things. Very genuine. But we see a totally different side, don't we? We see a man with a wicked personality, so bubbly, such a laugh, you know, that smile that just lights you up. But we need to get that across to the general public as well. We're actually doing a series documentary about Anthony Joshua at the moment that we're making for Sky, which hopefully will get that across as well. Because at the moment he's just a little bit, because he's been
safe.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the stuff like when he talks about David Klitschko, you know, it's like he's hilarious. He is a funny guy, and the stuff, that's why the stuff that you do with him is important, because with you he relaxes, and he's still in himself. But even when you're doing that thing around his room, he's still just he says something, you go, oh, don't come, you know. So
okay. This is going back to the Irish thing with Macklin and Lee. Joe Fitz says, big fan from Ireland, love Matchroom, blah, blah, blah. What you've done for the sport. My question to Eddie is, I know Andy Lee and Macklin aren't your fighters, but are you still interested in playing a part with DeBella to bring the fight to Dublin, as I think it would be a shame if the two of the best middleweight fighters on either island happens in the States?
Yeah. The answer is yes, I'm interested. I still feel like it's a bit of a punt. You know, I don't know the Irish I don't know the Irish market that well down there. How big is it? Is it one of them that you hire at the O2 in Dublin and then you look at the numbers on Fight Week and go, oh, fuck me. You know, or do you go in there and go, wow, we've unearthed something here? You know, my gut feeling is the latter, but I still feel like it's half a punt. So as a promoter and as a businessman, I'm up for a punt, but I'm also up for getting the numbers right. So that depends how realistic the fighters are. Everybody can share in the success of the show, but we still need a safety net just in case it's not what it says on the tin.
Safety net as in bang out your undercard?
No, safety net as in getting the numbers right, so that if it doesn't
how do you know that? How do you know them things before you go out?
Because what you do is you budget like any proper company should, and you know your downside and you know your upside, and you've got to be comfortable with your downside, and you've got to know that it's not going to hurt you too badly. It means that you can operate every day. You're not going to go out of business. You're not going to go into administration. Just keep going, keep doing what you're doing. But also, you've got to know the upside. But the fighters have got to know the upside as well. You know, that's the sort of one where you go in with an open book with the fighters and say, here's the numbers. These are all the figures. Let's work on it together. Let's make it a huge success. But everyone's got to know the risks, i.e. the risks on us, because the risks on no one else. But you just got to get the numbers right. That's what I'm saying. You know, so what I mean by that is if both of them come in and say, we want X, we want this, and I'm not confident that I could deliver them, I'd have second thoughts.
Okay. Charlie Kinson says, Eddie, would you consider the John McDermott fight for Anthony Joshua?
Yeah, I think John McDermott's due to fight Ian Lewington for the English. But again, all those guys, you know, McDermott, Lewington, Sprott, Skelton, that's the level he should be at now, I believe, moving forward.
Okay. A lot of questions about this. I picked out one. This is from Mike. I think it's Foy. Mike Foy is his name. Given that Matchroom have quite a lot of shows on, would you not think doing a loyalty scheme for fans that just aren't interested in the super fights and go to them all, so that when a Froch v Groves type fight comes along, there's priority, such as having access to tickets an hour or day before?
Tickets? Good question. On my mind, working on it at the moment. And a couple of exclusives. I think we're going to be at the stage now where we're going to be working towards some non-televised shows to help the progression of some of our younger fighters. And the way that I'm looking at doing this is, and again, feedback is key. You know, some kind of loyalty scheme, loyalty program whereby you get first access to the big shows that he's talking about. You get free viewing of our live streams for our non-televised shows. You get weekly or bi-weekly magazine updates or however we do it on all of our fighters. You know, so we're just putting a package together where there's some kind of scheme that fans can be a part of, where they can get the access to the non-televised shows. They can get the upfront allocation on tickets. I think we've got to remember as well that this has all happened very quickly. We're talking about a scheme where people get first choice at tickets before they sell out. 2 years ago, we couldn't even sell out Hillsborough Leisure Centre. So it's all evolved. This whole sport has just gone crazy for us very, very quickly. So this is definitely something we need to get on top of, and the team are working on it at the moment. And again, it's part of this whole. I think the way our stable is expanding, I've got 24 fighters who I'd love to sign right now who are approaching me to find, but I haven't got the space. So I need to try and make space. I've got to be able to develop them in the right way. And if that means fighting on non-televised, because streaming channels, which effectively what it'll be, can do some decent numbers. But we need to develop them all the time. And at the moment, we get to a stage where we come up to the end of the summer, I could really do another 2 shows, because I'm having to put 12 or 13 fights on each show, doing my bollocks as well. Fans are happy, but really I could do with a couple more shows.
Is it like to happen?
What?
Extra shows before the summer?
No, I mean, we've got more shows. The contract runs with Sky from July the 1st to end of June. So in the next fiscal, we've got some extra shows anyway, but I still need more shows. And that's why the non-televised stuff, again, streamed, will just help me bring on those other fighters, which maybe just in the middle, because also we're at the stage now where, say like Kevin Mitchell the other week, I know his opponent was shocking, but those little, sort of camp splitting fights can happen anywhere, and I don't think the viewers want to watch those, and the fans in the big arena paying the big money want to watch those. So maybe we could put that on there, and we can have the younger fighters coming through, fighting for area titles and English titles, and also work with a lot of other, guys who I've got a lot of respect for in the business. People like Mickey Elliott, Carl Greaves, Steve Wood, Dave Carr, and just sort of all help out to try and progress things.
Okay. Nick Watkins says, my question for Eddie is, when building a full card for each show, do you have an idea in advance of who will box when based on locations and fighter? Obviously, putting Welsh fighters on the Wales card is a must for ticket sales, but scheduling must be difficult, and you keep delivering great cards up and down the country. Yeah,
that's one thing that I'm a bit of a pervert on, in that I've got a system where I've got all our fighters and I'm planning out literally their next 5 fights. So you might have one line on the spreadsheet and it might say, I don't know, Callum Smith, and it might say, well, it will say, April 19th, Manchester, 6/8 rounds. May the 17th, Cardiff, v Tobias Webb, WBC international title. June/July, potentially Liverpool, potentially Hull, and then after that, September, venue, TBC, and I've got that for every fighter. Some are a little bit different, like obviously Kell, Brian Rose, that's one fight, and then, you decide obviously what happens after that. They fight for the world title. But all of the fighters I know, and then obviously when I decide to go to a venue like Cardiff on May the 17th, I know that Lee Selby's going to be there, I know Nathan Cleverley's going to be there, I know Gavin Rees is going to be there. But what I'm trying to do now, just for the economics, and it's not rocket science, is to match our fighters with fighters from those cities. Do you understand what I'm saying? And a good example of that is, Callum Smith against Tobias Webb. Another example of that is Gregor's Proctor against Matthew Hall. Just to try and make the accounting add up by attracting a fighter that's going to add value through ticket sales as an opponent. Because generally an opponent is no value other than fighting your fighter.
Lee Wood says, Eddie, after the success of the Premier League darts in Leeds, has it made you look for any more Leeds boxers to join Josh Warrington on bills there?
Yeah, and I nearly brought a prize fighter to Leeds in May. Great arena, really good. Was you at the Hall Malinga fight?
No.
No. You know, that I think that was the first boxing show they had there. Definitely in my plans. You know, there's a couple of things. You know, I want to go to Leeds. I want to do something in the North East. I want to go to Birmingham. You know, so there's definitely some things to do late 2014, stroke 2015, and Leeds Arena is definitely on the radar for that.
Okay. Andy Bass says, would you be interested in making the Gavin and Brook fight?
You know, that could be a great defence for Kell Brook, and I'd never slag another fighter. And listen, I've already told you that Frankie Gavin is a very, very talented fighter, but he's not showing anything to me that he could beat Kell Brook. But also, no disrespect to Frankie Gavin, but his profile is like down here, you know, and Kell Brook's profile is like up here. So he's got to be in big fights. He's got to get the exposure. He's got to get the profile to warrant a fight like that. You know, the reason that Kell Brook and Amir Khan can happen is because it's a box office fight. Kell Brook against Frankie Gavin, no disrespect, you know, it's Frankie. Look at who Frankie Gavin's fighting. And I know, listen, at the end of the day, I know that Kell Brook hasn't operated at the level that some people would like him to, but still, you know, Senchenko, Carson Jones, Saldivar, even Matthew Hatton, you know, you look at the last few from Gavin, Denton Vassell's really the standout victory. But in time, if they can get his profile right, Brook against Gavin could be a good fight, and it could be a fight for a world title.
Okay. Rowan Jegu says, if Froch beats Groves again, is a rematch with Andre Ward still a possibility?
What is happening with Andre Ward? Like, is he retired or what? I mean, it's just a mess, isn't it? I'm asking you.
Oh, well, you're asking me.
But as a fan, I mean, what is happening with Andre Ward? I mean, he fought Rodriguez, right? I don't even remember that fight. Do you?
Yeah.
What else he doing? I mean, you know, he's talking about.
But does Carl still want to fight him?
I think the way Carl's mentality at the moment is like this: George Groves. Do you know what I mean? And the Chavez fight is still in the mind for
Chavez more realistic than Ward.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Golovkin.
Definitely. Yeah, they talk about Chavez Golovkin, aren't they?
Be interesting.
Can't see that fight happening, but if it does, fair play.
Affy says, Eddie, will you be walking Froch out into the ring, seeing as you're not Groves' promoter, or will you wait in the ring for them both?
I'll walk out with Carl Froch. I did last time as well.
Yeah. Graham Raitt says, what is the toughest negotiations you have failed to make a fight happen, and who was it between?
Failed. Again, I suppose I'm just a rookie really, but once I've got my teeth into negotiations, I haven't really failed at many junctures. I'm just trying to think one that I've failed at. Probably Quig Frampton, I suppose. I mean, we haven't been deep in the negotiations, but I suppose I've failed at that at the moment.
You failed at Brooklyn Jones 3 and all, didn't you?
Yeah, but we're going to back that up with Bellew Chilemba 3, so you know, that'll provide a smokescreen.
Ian Moffat.
I know Ian Moffat.
I know Ian Moffat as well.
Ian Moffat gave me a lot of stick about Froch Groves, and then we had a chat, good chat in Liverpool. Gave me stick on Twitter, had a good chat in Liverpool. He's a big Rocky Fielding fan. I think he's from the Isle of Man.
Yeah, he gave me a Rocky Fielding t-shirt.
Did he?
Eddie, what was the last thing you saw someone do that really impressed you?
Do you know what it was? It was it's a bit of a weird one, but just can't come to me. So I don't know if you saw my retweet the other day, but it said like something like, and I thought my life, I had problems, something like that. And it was a girl in Africa, young girl in Africa, who obviously, my daughter's only 4.5, but when I saw that picture, I wanted to talk to her about it. Do you know what I mean? So I said, look, I want to show you something. So I showed her the picture of the girl, and she was like, why are her legs so skinny? You know, and it was like, and I explained to her that obviously she's not as lucky as you are, she doesn't get the opportunity to eat and blah, blah, blah. And she was like studying it. And then all throughout that day, she asked to see the picture again. Oh, her legs are really skinny, Daddy. You know, I said, yeah, because she's not lucky like you. You know, you mustn't waste your food, blah, blah, blah. And when I was laying down with her in bed reading her a story, I finished the book and I said, night, night, I'm going to bed. And she went, Daddy, can we send some food and water to that girl? You know what I mean? I thought that was really nice. That impressed me.
That is impressive. Yeah. How old was your daughter?
4.5. Probably a bit early to. I don't know. I just that and as a sort of that moment impressed me, and it impressed both sides, from her and from me, because I was glad that I showed her that. Mm. I was in two minds. Do you know what I mean? 4.5. But
yeah, no, I saw
she impressed me with that.
Okay.
That's just a bit random, really. But
okay.
You know.
David Johnson says, Matchroom are really striving ahead of the competition and delivering on what the fans are looking for. Can you give us an idea of your backroom team, i.e. matchmaker, venue coordinators, on how you go about putting the show together? I know it's a long one, so a little insight would be great.
Okay. The team's been developing over the last sort of year or two in terms of numbers. John Wishausen, who is probably the nicest man in boxing. If you ever find one person that says one bad word about John Wishausen, I would be shocked. He's the boxing operations manager. He is the sort of liaison point with the British Boxing Board of Control, and knows everybody in the game. Dead straight, top man. Steve Dawson is the financial director of Matchroom Sport, now getting involved in the messier stuff of the boxing world, dealing with all the legal responses, dealing with the contracts, fighter contracts, governing body contracts, broadcast contracts. Frank Smith, who is, you know, little Frank,
20, I know little Frank.
21, been working for me since he was 16, sort of like my right hand man, really, you know.
He's gonna love that.
Deals with, yeah, like, you know, but more of a PA. Deals with the venues, deals with getting the tickets on sale, deals with the seating, the pricing. You've got Matt Rich, who handles social media for Matchroom Boxing.
Top man, Matt Rich.
You like Matt Rich?
Yeah, we're media buddies, aren't we?
He handles the Matchroom Sport, prize fighter social media, but also a lot of support for our fighters in terms of fighter marketing and their social media. Ross Garrity, who's recently joined us from Saatchi, he's in charge of fighter marketing, so working on the commercial side, sponsorship, dealing with commercial partners for our fighters, and of course our commercial partners. Anthony Lever is head of press and public relations for our shows, also for the fighters. Karen Mazzoni, she's head of sort of admin, if you like, dealing with sort of fighter liaisons, so dealing with the fighters day in, day out, dealing with the hotel requests,
books my hotels
kits,
as well.
Yeah, kit requests, all that sort of stuff, and then me, and my old man. That's it.
Yeah. Haven't forgotten anyone?
No, I don't think I have. Do you? No. Kugan Cassius. He's a big member of the team.
Powerful. Niall Burke. The rise in British boxing has coincided with your emergence as the leading promoter on these shores, and also the rise of IFL TV. However, with the likes of Frost and Groves being such a huge hit with fans at Wembley, in brackets, biggest fight in British boxing, etc., have you thought about the longevity and what you can do in the future to ensure that Matchroom doesn't hit their peak on May 31st?
Great question. Yeah, we'll have 2 tickets for that. When I got involved in boxing, I didn't really know where it was going to take me. Do you know what I mean? I've been around boxing for most of my life, but as a business, I knew it had legs, and I knew I could revive it because it's a great sport. I don't mean to sound like, oh, I saved it, because I really didn't. I just gave it a shake. And the sport is so great that I always felt that we were capable of doing basically what's happened. You know, if I get any criticism, it's like, oh well, let's see if he's around in 5 or 10 years' time. And the answer is, I don't know where I'll be in 5 or 10 years' time. I can just tell you that I'm committed to the sport. I've got no plans to leave the sport. I haven't really got started yet in terms of where I want to take it. But the Froch Groves fight, and picking up on that question, it does worry me of where do you go from there? Do you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, it's like everything's like a drug, isn't it, in life? And when you get something, you want more and more and more. You know, I remember when I walked out with Francis Ampofo for the British flyweight title when I was about 12, carrying the belt out, and it was at York Hall, and I was absolutely shitting myself. And then I think I carried like a Eubank belt out in front of 20,000, and it was like, you just want that. You want something a little bit more, don't you? It's like if you're a smoker, you know, you start on 1 or 2 fags, don't you? And that's not enough. You need 3 or 4, and then you need 10 a day. You know, if you're a drinker, you know, 1 little brandy's not enough. It's more, you know, and boxing gets you like a drug. So what I'm trying to say is I would never be happy with just going to a show and going, just not up for this. Do you know what I mean? Like, this just isn't making my heart beat. It's not getting me excited. I'm not nervous for a fighter. You know, so, and when that happens, I think that's probably time to walk away from anything. You know, a bit like a relationship, isn't it? If you're with some bird and you're sort of meeting up with her and you just think, it's just like, she's not doing anything for me. She's, you know, I'm not excited that I'm going on a date with her. I'm just going through the motions. And that's when you're going to be a shit boyfriend or a shit promoter, because you just, you know, at the moment, my passion is endless, my enthusiasm is endless, and it probably comes across. But when that dies, that might be the time where you have to look yourself in the mirror and say, other than the money, which is always important, I'm not that kind of person. I want a buzz, you know, and whilst that buzz is there, I'll always be here. But when that buzz dies, but the problem with that buzz is to keep that buzz going, you've got to go bigger, 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 bigger. And by doing 80,000 at Wembley on one of the biggest fights of all time in British boxing history, where do you go from there? Now, it might have been 3 or 4 minutes of the longest waffle I've ever come out with. And there was one time where you were looking at me and I could tell you were just like not really listening to what I was saying. So hopefully people understand what I'm saying. But do you understand what I'm saying? Do you know what I mean? It's like, and that's what that question is about. On May the 31st, the biggest, where do you go from there? And I think the buzz comes from taking the likes of Callum Smith, Joshua Campbell, Martin Walscott, Yafai, you know, to those big fights, knowing that we started from, you know, effectively the beginning with them. But that does concern me. So it's my job to make it bigger. But how do you make it bigger?
Well,
sorry, it's just something I've been thinking about as well, you know.
No, I wasn't breaking out of what you were saying. The tape's running out, so I was just keeping a conscious eye on that. So this has sort of ended up being part 1.
Okay.
So
see you on part 2.
We'll see you on part 2.